The Pokemon TCG's 2026 rotation is upon us, and we are going to be losing a lot of big cards. Like cards like Charizard, Goldenga, Gardevoir, cards that have been here forever, better part of 2 years, are all going to go poof. And there are tons of videos out there explaining what cards you need to buy and what you should expect kind of post rotation. What I want to do today is go through some tips and tricks that have survived me through the years of rotation. I've been playing for a while, so I've gone through a lot of rotations. In this video, I'm going to be going over 6 or 7 tricks and tips that you can use to better prepare yourself for rotation. If you're new here, please do hit the subscribe button. But without further ado, let's get right into it. All right, tip number 1, super simple, but I think it's important given the economy of the world and all that stuff. Get ahead of the curve. What do I mean by that? We have tons of data now online that kind of shows what decks are doing good over in Japan, what decks we expect to do well. And in those decks are going to contain a certain staple set of cards that you're going to want to make sure that you own. So what I've been doing the last month or so is doing a lot of inventory around my house. So I've just been looking through, making sure I have all the staples that I need, all that stuff. What's going to happen is the first couple weeks after rotation, depending on what kind of big tournaments are around or where you live, there's going to be a lot of hype, obviously, in demand for those cards that are now tier A or tier S or whatever. So those cards are going to kind of skyrocket in price. And at the end of the day, guys, we play Pokemon. It's not going to get too expensive, but it will matter. I wouldn't be surprised to see cards like Pokepad and Judge and all those things go up a lot. As we're losing Iono, people are going to default to Judge, and there are going to be different kind of supporter alternatives or trainer alternatives that are going to come to the forefront, and people that need to compete within that month are going to panic buy. So what you want to do now, and we're still a month and a half out, so people haven't really clued in too much yet. Go out and get those cards. Make sure you have those cards, whatever those staples are. There are, like I said, a ton of videos out there that are going to tell you what cards we're losing, what cards we're gaining, what cards you should buy. I'm going to link a couple in the description. Maybe I'll put a list in there too of cards that you should go out and get right now. Order them off TCG Player, trade, whatever you do. Just make your life a little bit easier down the road. And even if you don't know if you're going to use the cards or not, it's better just to have them and figure it out later, because you're never going to really lose money off a 10-cent card anyways. You just don't want to have to buy it when it's $5. Tip number 2 is one that I think doesn't get talked about enough. And I think if you're a serious player and you are in this game to win, I think this point is overlooked every single year, and it comes to burn people. Point number 2 is don't one trick. Throughout the year, you're going to find comfort in certain decks, and certain decks are going to perform better for you than others, and that's a natural part of Pokemon, and I think that's important. We've seen people over the years get entire world's invites just off one deck, and I think that's good. I think it's really, really good to know your own deck, and I think you'll always do better with a deck that you know rather than by bouncing from deck to deck. What I will say, though, is about a month and a half or 2 months before rotation, that's when you want to start really branching out. If you've been on the same deck the entire year, I think it's really, really important that you try different decks, try decks that are going to be prevalent after rotation, because what's going to happen is rotation is going to snap and hit you, right? And if you're not prepared on those other archetypes, or you've no comfort pick from that point, it's going to take you a while to ramp back up. And especially the way it's kind of formatted now in Pokemon, where the season ends in the end of June, but rotation happens in April. Between April and June is crunch time for a lot of folks, right? A lot of people are chasing invites. You want to do well in that time. You don't want to have to miss a beat. So I recommend from now, especially if you got a little bit of a break, the North American regional schedule is a little weird. So if you're in North America, we have a little bit of a break right now if you're not doing Seattle and Houston. Take this time to learn some archetypes that are going to be existent after rotation. Live is obviously a very good tool for that right now, because they have Ascended Heroes in there. And so the people who are playing Standard are mostly not on live at this point, because if you're preparing for Seattle, you don't want to play with the Ascended Heroes card. So there's a lot of time to just play with post-rotation decks. Give it a try, kind of get a feel for it. And I think the main purpose of this video will be to tell you to get ahead of the curve and just know what you're going to do after, especially if you're in a World's invite chase, you want to get your ace trainer or something like that. You do not want to miss a beat after rotation. So I implore you to try those decks now, or at least have an idea of what you're going to do after rotation, just so you're not completely blindsided. And whether that's narrow it down to a few decks, or try a certain deck, or maybe you even say, hey, I know Dragapult now, and I know Dragapult after rotation will be very similar. I'm just going to stick with Dragapult. That's a fine plan. Just have a plan. So tip number 3 is actually barely a rotation tip at all. It's actually a tip to kind of avoid rotation. Tip number 3 is to capitalize on the play before rotation if you feel comfortable. So what I mean by that is you'll find, and I found this over the years, that I go up and down a lot with formats. There are formats I do really well in. There are formats I do very poorly in. I think almost all players can relate to that. If you are in a hot point of your life right now, and I don't mean like hot girl summer. I mean like you're playing good Pokemon. You're feeling good. You're doing well at every tournament. Don't delay your finishes until after rotation, saying, "Oh, I have 4 or 5 months before the end of the season." And again, whether this is for Ace Trainer, whether this is for Worlds, whether this is for your own personal growth, even in any way, even if it's not quantifiable by points, take advantage now while it's still familiar to you. I think there's a lot of people in the Worlds chase that might procrastinate a little bit, and then I think this year versus like more so than any year, you're gonna feel a drop off after April. There's gonna be a lot of players that are super lost. Those Goldengo mains, those Gardevoir mains, those people that have just like played the same deck or the same subset of decks the entire year. They're gonna feel lost for a little bit, and you don't want to get caught in that bubble where you don't know what you're doing and you're learning a whole new format. Especially if you're a competitive player, you often don't have a lot of time to look forward. You're just focusing on what's now, and I think take that time now. Go to that extra League Cup. Go to that regionals now if you can, just to get your bearings kind of underneath you and set yourself up in a way that you will succeed later on in the season. I think it's there's a lot to be said about the drop off, and I think the drop off this year is going to be huge. So my tip now is if you're feeling good, get out there, get your finishes done. I know I'm going to be. I'm going to be out there getting all my finishes done before rotation because I don't know what's going to happen after. So that's tip number 3. By the way, if you look at me and you say I look stupid as hell, you're right. I wear these sunglasses and this hat on the podcast, so I try to remain consistent. And if you've been around here before, you know that's why I wear these. But some man called me Ali G in the last episode. I know he meant it like kind of insultingly. He's like, "Yo, I'm not taking Pokemon advice from Ali G." But I thought it was kind of jokes. So I just wanted to explain why I look like this all the time with the contradicting school hat and sweater as well. And tip number 4 is for after rotation. Tip number 4 is actually very similar. It's actually the opposite of tip number 3. It's when you get to rotation and you're looking to learn this new format, you probably should try and one trick something just for the first little while you get your bearings, while the format kind of develops itself. Pick a deck that you feel has a high ceiling and just one trick it. Learn the deck after rotation and kind of subject yourself to the good and the bad of the deck. It's going to take a couple weeks to really get to your bearings underneath you, depending on how fast you learn. But I think one tricking after rotation is something that I do every single year. I think it's really, really important. So when rotation used to be in August, or sorry, it was just before Worlds, so I suppose in July, I would always make sure that the first deck that I tried was like a feel out, like I'm just kind of getting a feel of it, play a few games, whatever. But then once I get like even a slight grasp on what the format is, I'll pick a deck and I will stick with it. And I think that's really important as the meta develops around you as well. People need time to figure things out, and you wouldn't believe how much more efficient and how much better the lists will be even a month after rotation versus when it first comes out. And I know we have Japan to rely on and all that stuff, but that's not necessarily true. We know that every time a format comes here, it completely changes, depending, like regardless of what the Japanese have in their format. Like ours just kind of plays differently. So buy yourself some time and really learn a deck that's good, and you'll be able to kind of pick up where you left off a little bit faster. And I think it is important that like in the deck or the deck learning process that you stick with the ups and the downs. Like there's going to be some downs no matter what deck you play. Like I remember last year before Worlds, I was like one tricking Reggie Drago, which is like the most overpowered deck ever. And there was a week where I basically just couldn't win a series of games. Like the deck just broke. And I had to force myself to really, really stick with it. And it's these like inconsistent decks that sometimes have that happen to them where even with Gardevoir, you'll play it sometimes. You'll be like, this deck sucks. So you'll go through like a few days where the deck sucks. But you just have to remember that like the samples go up and down. Like it's kind of like an Excel graph. Like eventually it'll average out. And you just hope that it averages out in the right way towards your tournament. So like stick with your decks, really learn them. And I think that's the most important thing going into rotation. All right, the last tip to survive rotation in 2026, and this is one I hold really near and dear to my heart, is be creative. At the start of the format, and like this will really feel like a turn of the page, like it will feel like a complete start of a new format. You're going to get a new set plus rotation, and it's going to create a lot of entropy around, and people are going to be like kind of scrambling. It is the greatest time at that point to come up with something new. Be creative, look around, kind of see poke around Limitless, see what ideas have been floating around there. Some of my greatest like deck ideas that I've ever made, I originated just off of like ideas I found on Limitless that I just built off of. So have a look around. It's the time of the year where people are the least prepared for any sort of like rogue thing that you might come up with. And if you're like a deck building enjoyer, or you're like a rogue player, this is the best time of year for you. This is the only time where you're going to be able to completely catch people off guard. And obviously you could also innovate. You could change a format entirely just by yourself if you do well enough with a certain archetype. So I think it's a really good time to kind of just get creative. And I know I will be for sure. I remember back in 2023, before all the ICs, the format would change. They'd have a new set. I remember like 2023 LAIC, I believe Paradox Rift came out, and that's when I came up with I didn't come up. I found the Iron Hands deck online, and it changed, like me playing 18 energies in my Iron Hands and top 16 LAIC changed the way Miraidon was played going forward. So you can innovate and you can kind of change how it works. I'm not taking credit for any of that. I found that online, and that was that. But my point is, nobody knew what was coming for them when I built that deck. When I went there, and that wasn't even with the rotation, that was just a new set. When I went there, people were all expecting the traditional version of Miraidon or whatever. And like, it is the time of year where there is the most entropy. So I do recommend, above anything else, is to go out there, be creative, see what you can come up with. There are always broken things that are just lying underneath our plain vision. Like, I think about Mega Absol Box recently, which is just like, that was a bunch of cards that just kind of already existed, and Tord put them together. And now you're basically looking at the best deck in the format. And like, if Tord can just pull that out of thin air, I'm positive there are ideas that haven't been explored yet. And we know how kind of different, like I touched on before, how different our format is from Japan. So I wouldn't rely too much on what Japan's doing. Be innovative, be creative, look through your bulk. There are going to be some cards that are going to be really good now that weren't good before. So have a look through, see what you can do. All right, and that concludes my tips and tricks for rotation for this upcoming year. 2026, like I said, huge rotation. There's going to be a lot of cards coming in, a lot of cards going out. I think there's a lot, like I said, a lot of good YouTube videos out there preparing you on which cards to go buy. I think all these tips will kind of conglomerate together to at least prepare you for rotation, get you thinking about rotation. There are a lot of things that kind of happen between the lines that you won't think about until rotation actually happens. So I try to get you guys as prepared as possible. If there's anything I missed down below or any tips that you'd like to share to the public, please do let me know down below. If you're new here, please do like and subscribe. Kind of building this channel up, so I do appreciate every single subscription. And yeah, that's basically all I got. I got some for the next video. I'm really excited for this. I got some Squishmallows cards I bought. There they are. It's super jank, and it wouldn't be an Anil TCG video without me going off on a tangent a little bit. But I am excited. I'm gonna open this with y'all as somebody who's never opened Squishmallows cards before. We're gonna have a good time. So keep an eye out for them Squishmallows videos. And if you're I can't believe I just said that. I'm a grown-ass man. I just said keep an eye out for my Squishmallows videos. I'm going to sign off right there. All right. Good luck with rotation. Peace out, guys.